Jai Hind students, software engineering, the code of this particular subject is KCS 601. Well, today I'll be covering unit 5, and in this actually you'll be dealing about software maintenance and software project management. Now, what is actually software maintenance? See, software maintenance is the last stage of software development life cycle. We basically start with the requirement analysis and feasibility study, design, coding, testing. I mean, there are a number of phases in software development life cycle. So, this is the very last phase in the development of the particular software. As the product has been released, the maintenance phase keeps the software up to date with environment changes and changing user requirements, because the requirements of the user keeps on changing. So, after the product has been released, this maintenance phase, it is going to keep the software up to date, because the requirements are something which keeps on changing. So, based on those requirements, if we need to keep our software update, we of course require the maintenance of that particular software. Again, it consumes about 40 to 70% of the cost of the entire life cycle. This is also very important thing, that out of the total cost, it is the phase which basically consumes 40 to 70% of the total cost of the entire life cycle. Now, the important thing is that this particular phase, it can only happen efficiently if the earlier phases are done properly. That means, in other words, we can say that if the earlier phases of the software development life cycle have not been done properly, then we cannot say that your maintenance is going to happen efficiently. So, it can happen, that means we can incorporate any particular type of changes in the software properly, efficiently, if and only if the prior phase, that means we can deal in terms of, say for example, the requirements are not clear, right? So, if the requirements are not clear, how can we expect that we'll be able to produce the software which is of good quality software, right? And again, to incorporate any particular type of changes in the software which is not perfect is totally useless. So, it is going to happen efficiently if and only if all the previous phases in the development of the software have been done properly. Now, second is this, how the software, we can say that software is an evolutionary entity. Software maintenance includes error correction, enhancement of capabilities, deletion of obsolete capabilities, and the optimization. So, it is something in which we can say that if we are having any sort of error, we are going to remove those very type of errors, right? If you want to enhance any particular type of capabilities of the software, then again we can enhance the capabilities of the software. We can delete the obsolete capabilities, and again we can optimize the software in the proper way. As changes cannot be avoided, we should develop mechanism for evaluating, controlling, and making the modifications, right? In the field of software, it is very much clear to us that when we are talking about the type of changes, we cannot avoid any sort of changes. Because say for example, presently your customer asking for something else, and later on the mindset of the customer changes. So, he may ask you to make any sort of amendment or even to make some type of changes in the particular the software that he asked you initially. So, it is very important that these changes cannot, as we know, we cannot be avoided. So, the software should be developed mechanism for evaluating. We should be able to develop a particular type of mechanism with the help of which we will be able to evaluate, we will be able to control, and again we will be able to make any sort of modifications in the system. Hence, we can say that any work that is done to change the software after its operation is considered to be the maintenance work, right? Any particular type of work which is basically done to change the software after the software comes into the operation, then that is the work which is basically considered as the maintenance work. Now, the term evolution has been used with reference to 1960s to signify the growth of the dynamic software. Now, what is actually software maintenance? It is a very broad activity which includes correction, as I told you, enhancement of capabilities, deletion of optimization capabilities, and again the optimization is the main concern. Now, as per the definition of IEEE, what is software maintenance? It is the modification of software product after delivering a particular software, so that we will be able to correct the faults, we will be able to improve the performance or other attributes, so that the system of the software becomes adaptable according to the particular type of environments, right? So it is a modification of the software after the delivery. It is a very important point. That means after the delivery, whatever modifications if we are going to incorporate, it's not like that before delivery if you are going to make any sort of changes. So after delivery, if you are going to incorporate any particular type of changes to correct the faults, of course, the main target is that how we'll be able to improve the performance of the system. Right, that is important thing, or other attributes to adapt the product to the modified environment, so that the system or the product that we have developed, it is it is going to adapt according to the change in the type of environment. Now, as per ISO, what is software maintenance? It is a set of activities which is performed when software undergoes modification. Right, we may incorporate different particular type of activities. So what are different type of activities that need to be performed when the software undergoes any type of modification? And again, that is of course for the depending on the type of requirements from the customers, from the clients, based on which the modifications need to be done. Now, based on the modifications, to code and to associate the documents due to the problem or the need for the improvement or the adaptation. So these are the different definitions that is given by IEEE and the ISO. Now, the important questions that basically comes into the scenario is that what is the need of maintenance, right? Why do we need maintenance? If we don't do maintenance, that what all things can happen, right? So it is very important to understand that what is basically the need for maintenance. Software maintenance is basically needed for correcting the errors, right? There can be number of different type of errors, and of course none of us actually want the code which is erroneous type of code. So we always want the code which is an error free code, and of course if we have to correct those very type of errors, that is only possible if and if the software is maintainable. Right. So if the software is not maintainable, we will not be able to correct those type of errors, because again we have to make several type of modifications, and if we are not able to incorporate any particular type of modifications, then how will we be able to correct if there is any type of error in the system? Then changes in user requirement with the time. As time passes, we can have this particular type of scenario that the requirements of the end users keeps on changing. Initially, the client or the end user might have asked you for some different, features in the particular software. As in when time passes, he or she, they may ask you, or the team may, or the individual concerned may ask you to incorporate some new type of changes in the software. So again, as the changes in the user requirement basically changes according to the time, we of course require the maintenance of the software, because we will only be able to maintain it if and only if the software is maintainable. Then again, changing hardware software environment, frequent changes in different type of hardware that people generally use, and of course the type of software, the applications that we actually work with. If there's any particular type of changes in the particular software, due to which we'll be able to incorporate, and there is a need for the maintenance of the software. Then again, it is needed, or software is needed to improve the efficiency of the system. We always want the good performance of the system. We always want to increase the efficiency of the system. So if we talk in terms of software maintenance, we basically need it so that we will be able to make the system more and more efficient. To optimize the code so that it runs fast. Right? It's again one of the most important point that we just are quite interesting in optimizing the particular code so that it runs fast and will be able to get or fetch the results in shorter amount of time. To modify the components, we have already made different components, right? If we want to enhance any, or if we want to make any type of modification in the component, we'll only be able to incorporate that that particular modification in the component if and only if the software is maintainable in nature. Now, to eliminate any unwanted type of side effects. There can be different type of side effects. So if we want to eliminate the side effects or unwanted type of side effects, we can of course use this maintenance. Now, thus the maintenance is needed to ensure that the system continues to satisfy the user requirement. This is the most important point, that it is basically needed so that we'll be able to ensure that the end user is basically set, because at the end of the day, that is actually the aim, that how much satisfied that individual user is. So it is basically needed so that we'll be able to ensure that the system satisfies the user requirements in the proper way. Now, what is actually the aim of software maintenance? With what purpose we are actually maintaining the software? First is, as I told you, to correct the errors. Second is to enhance the software by changing its different type of functions, making any sort of modifications in the functions. Again, to update the software, if you want to update due to any or the other reason the software, of course, we basically require the maintenance, because that is only possible if and only if the software is maintainable. Again, to adapt the software to cope up with the changes in the particular type of like the environment. Now, let's discuss about the different categories of software maintenance. There are basically 4 types of software maintenance. Now, what are those different types of maintenance? We will be going to discuss each and every maintenance one by one. First comes is the corrective maintenance, right? So, this is something which basically refers to the modification that is initiated by the defects in the software. That means making the like correcting, right? If there is any particular type of issues in the particular code. So, this type of maintenance is the type of maintenance which refers, so that will be able to modify the initiated by the defects in the particular type of, so if there is any particular type of defects in the software, how we will be able to remove that particular type of defects? That is only possible once we will be having the corrective type of maintenance. We will actually be working to correct that particular fault or the defects in the software. Second is adaptive. Again, it is very much clear from this word itself only, adaptive. Right? It includes modifying the software to match the changes in the ever changing environment. That means to adapt according to the particular type of environment. Third is the perfective maintenance. What is perfective maintenance? It simply means to improve the processing efficiency or the performance, or simply restructuring the software to improve the changeability. That means how perfectly you will be able to improve the efficiency or the performance, or simply you will be able to restructure the software so that it improves the changeability. Then again, this may include enhancement of existing system functionality, improving in computation efficiency, etc. So, of course, to incorporate this, we may include that there is a necessity for the enhancement in the functionality of the particular system, and again improvement in the particular type of computation. So, corrective, adaptive, perfective. Last type of maintenance which comes into the scenario is the preventive type of maintenance. Now, what is preventive maintenance? It is a process by which we prevent our system from being obsolete. It's very important point, right? So, maintenance or the preventive maintenance is the type of maintenance based on which we will actually be able to prevent our system before it becomes obsolete. Now, it is something, it involves the concept of re-engineering. It's a very important term in software engineering. It is the concept of re-engineering and reverse engineering, in which what actually we do, the old systems with the old technology is basically re-engineered using the like the new technology, right? The old system or the legacy type of system, they are basically re-engineered with using the new type of technology. Then again, this maintenance prevents the system from dying out. So, it is one of the type of important maintenance which basically prevents your system from dying out. So, how you will be able to prevent your system, that we can come to know. Now, this is basically the figure which shows the distribution of maintenance effort. That means how much effort is basically required based on those 4 categories that we have already discussed. As you can see in this particular figure, about 21% of the maintenance effort is basically required for the corrective maintenance, right? Again, 4% is basically for the preventive. As far as adaptive is concerned, about 25% maintenance effort is basically required for adaptive type of maintenance. And you can see in this complete scenario, 50% of the effort, maintenance effort, is basically required for the perfective type of maintenance. So, this figure is something which basically shows the distribution of the effort or the maintenance effort. Now, when we are incorporating the maintenance, there are different type of problems which occurs during maintenance, right? What are the different type of problems? We should be encounter those very type of issues, and what are the problems that we generally encounter when we are talking about the maintenance of the software. Often the program is written by another person or the group of person. This is very important point, because you have to make or you have to enhance you have to make the type of modification in the particular code which is actually written by some another person or the group of person. So we have to actually understand what another person has written if we want to incorporate any particular type of modification, which is not as easy as it seems to be. So it is the major problem that the program is basically written by some another person. It's very easy to understand an individual if he or she himself has written that particular code. But if you have to understand the code that is written by somebody else, it's not very easy. So it is one of the major problem which occurs during the maintenance phase. Now the second is that often the program is changed by person who did not understand it clearly, right? There may be the scenario that the program is basically changed by the person who is actually not technically sound, you can say, who is not able to understand what is there in the code, right? So it is again the major problem which we generally encounter during the maintenance. Third is that problem listings are actually not structured. If the listing or if the program listings are properly structured, then obviously the things or the changes can be incorporated easily. But if the scenario is not completely structured or the listing is not actually structured, then of course we can have the type of issues in the system. Then fourth is the high staff turnover. This is again the major problem during the maintenance. Information gap, this is the major issue. This information gap, it is a major issue. We can, as I told you, that you need to understand the code that is written by somebody else. We can have the different type of issues. So there is a problem of information gap. You want to say something else, but the person whosoever you want to communicate is not able to understand what you actually want to convey. So that is what is the gap, right? So this is again the major problem that we generally face or that we generally encounter during the maintenance of the software. Then systems are not designed for change. Initially, when we are designing a particular system or when we are developing a particular type of software, we are not designing that particular software or the system for a particular type of change. But in future, if a type of scenario is occurring that we have to incorporate any type of changes in the system or the software, we have to. But initially, at your initial level, when we are designing or when we are developing the system, we are not actually designing the software for a particular instance of change. Now, what are the potential solutions to these maintenance problems? See, we have encountered that these are the different set of problems which generally encounter, when we are making any sort of modification, any sort of changes in the particular code after its delivery. So, what are the solutions that we are going to encounter based on the problems that we have encountered? So, first is budget and effort reallocation that need to be properly done, right? Again, complete replacement of the system. That can be another system that we are not going to incorporate and sort of change. We are simply going to make the replacement of the complete system rather than making the changes in the system which is already there. So that can be again the potential solution. Third is then maintenance of the existing system. That means we are not completely replacing the system. We are simply going to maintain the existing system. We are having a system and based on the type of changes or the requirements that we are having from the customer or the client side, based on that, how efficiently you will be able to maintain the system which is the existing system. So these are different potential solutions for the maintenance of the software. Now this figure basically shows the complete process of the maintenance, the complete software maintenance process. We basically starts with the objective. That means initially determining the objective of the maintenance. What is the objective of the maintenance? See, when we are talking in terms of maintenance, we are very much clear that the objective can be that we need to correct the program errors, right? We never want the program to be an error, erroneous program. So we always want the program to be an error-free program. And if there is any sort of error, we should be using or applying some methods, mechanisms, some tactics so that we'll be able to make the program error-free. So initial is the thing that we need to correct the program errors. Then second objective can be that we want to enhance and that we want to include new type of capabilities in the system. For that also we want the system to be incorporated according to the type of scenario, so that we will be able to incorporate or make any type of changes in the system. Third is that we need to delete the obsolete features from the system. Fourth, of course, is the optimization. So these are different, you can say, the major objectives based on which the maintenance of the software need to be done. After this, we need to understand the program, understanding of the program. Now, understanding of the program in terms of what complexity, We don't want the system or the program to be a complex. So how easy you will be able to incorporate it is an important thing. So complexity need to be done, complexity check need to be done. Again, documentation for understanding a proper particular program. It's very easy for an individual to understand the program if and only if the proper documentation of that program is properly done. If the documentation is not perfect, it's quite difficult for an individual even to understand it. Next is the self-descriptiveness. How self-descriptive that particular code is that you want to understand. That is an important thing. Next, the phase 2 is to generate the particular maintenance proposal. So that means once the objective of the maintenance is clear, once the program understanding is done, then we are going to generate the particular maintenance proposal. That means based on which some sort of extensibility, if required, need to be done. After that, account for the ripple effects, which basically deals with how stable a particular system is. Then lastly, we'll be able to perform the testing. That is how, when we are going to incorporate this particular type of change, we are of course going to check whether these incorporated change have been perfect or not. So then we have to pass, to check this particular testing, whether this particular testing is passed or this particular testing is not passed. If it is not passed, then again this cycle goes back and we again need to determine this particular type of object. So this is all about the process of maintenance. Thank you so much, students. Thank you.